have all of our panelists here, all of our guests, and there are plenty of people who are already tuning in. So I just want to welcome everyone now for joining us, all of our audience, all of our donors, and thank you for joining us for the final Town Hall Masterclass with MTT for our season. My name is Chad Goodman. I'm the conducting fellow here of the New World Symphony, and this Town Hall Masterclass is a bit different from all of the others in that we currently have several different instruments, sections of the orchestra that are being featured. In previous master classes, we were focusing on just one, but here it's sort of an all-star lineup, so to speak, featuring instruments from across the orchestra. And we have an amazing set of panelists who all have connections with New World as alumni, who are all performing in all different incredible orchestras. And I'll introduce them and they'll share a bit about themselves in a moment. But first, I'll just check in and see if MTT has anything he would like to add before we get into hearing from some of these great young musicians.
I'm delighted to see my veteran friends online and so pleased about everything that they're doing. And I'm sighing a sigh of great relief knowing that they will have so many brilliant and insightful and important things to say that I barely will have to say anything. and of course, we're looking very much forward to hearing our wonderful young colleagues for the first time.
Absolutely. So let's now sort of just get a quick go around the horn and hear from all of our panelists. Let's start with Natsuki Kumagai. Why don't you share your connection with New World, where you are right now, the position you have?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. My name is Natsuki. I'm in the Minnesota Orchestra, and this is my 4th year. I was at New World 2016 to 2017, and I honestly wouldn't be here if I wasn't at New World, because that year was where Ozma Vonska, Aaron Keith, the Minnesota Orchestra was there in Florida, and they came to do lessons, and Ozma did a concert, and I got to be concertmaster, sorry. And so being around those incredible people inspired me to want to go to that orchestra. And then I auditioned and I got it. So lots of thanks to Minnesota Orchestra and New World Symphony.
Yay.
Incredible. This place, as everyone who's tuning in who knows, is familiar with New World, it's such an incredible story and it's such a powerful place. And yeah, I just love hearing that. So let's move on to our cello panelist for the evening, Sian Daring Lee.
Hi, everyone. My camera is a little far away. As you can see, I'm at CIM, the Cleveland Institute, right now. So, well, I currently teach on, I'm on faculty at CIM, and I'm in charge of the chamber music. And I was at New World in 2008. It was a really wonderful time, although I was only there for 1 year, but I felt like I did everything I could possibly do and benefited a lot, from the organization and being a fellow there. And I remember the first piece that I played, ever played with MTT, with Michael, is Beethoven 5. And that was really, really fun. And also chamber music experience at New World was also really memorable for me as well. And I remember playing Schubert Cello Quintet, with Carter Bray and also my wonderful fellows, and also I think Mendelssohn D minor, with Emmanuel Axe that year as well. So I have to say I was really, really lucky. Yes. And I remember, Michael, and Manny was saying like, oh yeah, so third movement, don't go too fast. Then he started with a really fast tempo. And we were like, okay, so what do you mean by not too fast? But that was a really, really fun time playing chamber music at New World. But also, I learned a lot, from the coaches and also from my colleagues. And one of the things that I really felt was super beneficial was actually playing for my colleagues and the mock auditions that New World Symphony, I think when I was there, by the way, when I was there, we were still in the Lincoln Theater. And it was a very, very beautiful building and wonderful memories. So I remember weekly, we have mock auditions, so you can play anything you want, concertos, excerpts, and, playing for your colleagues and get comments. So I found that was really, really helpful for me. So now I'm teaching at CIM, and this has been my 4th year teaching here. So it's, and last year Michael was, conducting the Cleveland Orchestra. So we had a little gathering together, and that was really nice.
It's great. I love the full circle story of chamber music memories in 2008 with New World, and now you're running, chamber music and working on that at CIM. It's incredible. So now let's pass it over to Sergio Carreno.
Hi, everyone. Sergio Carreno here. I am coming from Portland, Oregon, where I play in the Oregon Symphony. Assistant principal timpanist and section percussionist, and I was in the New World Symphony from 2007 through 11. And so my first year at New World, we did the groundbreaking of the New World Center. And my last year at New World, we opened the New World Center. And man, what an experience to see that building go up. My signature might be somewhere in one of the steel beams in the center of the structure. So, man, what a journey being at New World was, and it was just so shaping, as all my colleagues have just been articulating. And having that journey kind of shape me as a musician, as a human being, has brought so much to what I've been able to do at my job here in Oregon. And I'm just beyond grateful for it. And so to be able to give back even a little bit right now, it's just always the best to be able to do that. And, I know Portland's gotten a lot of bad press lately, but don't believe it. It's a wonderful place to live. Watch Top Chef this season. It's based in Portland, and man, that's the Portland I know and love. But I'm looking forward to hearing some wonderful young artists, and I can't wait to do this. Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Great. And last we have Kenneth Thompkins, who's joining us as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Ken Thompkins. I was in the New World Symphony 1994 to 96. It was a wonderful, wonderful time for me. A great period of growth musically. I have just such fond memories of working with Michael and my colleagues, many of whom have really great careers at this point. European tours, South American tour. We even went to Israel. We played in Latrun. So, yeah.
Not that many people played there.
Yes. We played in Latrun, so I just have such fabulous memories of my time there. It was really, really terrific, and my, friends to this day, with many people I met there. So it was really, really positive growth experience for myself. So I'm really grateful to be here and looking forward to hearing everyone play.
Okay, thank you, Ken. So, who's our first candidate?
Yes, our first performer for this evening is Stefan Block. So I encourage everyone who is watching and joining to give a virtual welcome. And Stefan, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be performing as well. We're really looking forward to this.
Hello, my name is Stefan Block. I have the greatest opportunity being here. I'll be playing the first movement of Paul Creston's Marimba Concerto. And yeah, I'm really excited to do this. Such a great opportunity.
Wonderful. And we weren't able to catch the beginning, but I see that you're here in Miami, and you're at the New World Center right now, and you said you're playing the Creston. So yeah, we're so excited to hear you. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
spectacular.
Awesome. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Stefan, right? Is that how I pronounce your name?
Yes, Stefan.
Oh man, and you're in which grade now?
I'm in sophomore year. I'm 16.
You're 16 and a sophomore in high school. That
Yes.
is just brilliant, man. You are just a talent and obviously work really, really hard, and it's a joy to watch you play. That is astounding. Really great job, man.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was just really beautiful and refined and just mature. And so we don't have a ton of time. I wish we did. Chad, you got to stay on me, man, because I might go forever here. Because when someone plays like that, I just get excited and inspired. And wow, thank you for that. So we're going to share a lot. We're going to have a lot of information here. If I can share with you one concept, I think, that you can take away from all the information we're about to go through, not only you and I, but my colleagues on the panel and Michael. I would love if you grasped the concept tonight of a simple thing, the word clarity. It's a simple word. It means a lot of things, right? And so we'll dive into a little bit of specifics with technique and things like that in relation to that word. We can also talk about some bigger theme things in relation to that word, clarity. You are so on your way as being a 16-year-old sophomore is really just a beautiful thing to see. I want to just share this concept, clarity, and hopefully if you can allow it to kind of dictate your progress from here on out in your journey. I know you're certainly going to be playing music in the near future, correct? I mean, that's obvious, right? Is this a plan of yours for beyond your high school years?
Yeah, I want to take music performance in college and make it a career.
Wonderful. And I think I read in your bio you compose as well.
Yes.
Man.
I have taken composition courses.
Beautiful. You know what? I want to combine some of that stuff into some of the concepts we're going to talk about. So let's start. Let's dig in. So the first thing I want to kind of share with you in terms, again, the relationship of the concept of clarity. This piece was written in 1940. It's the first marimba concerto written ever. It's coming off the heels of the ragtime era right before it. And so the idea of syncopation, the idea of rhythm was huge, especially for this idiom and this instrument, right? And this was considered maybe the first serious attempt, or I should say the first attempt of writing a serious piece, correct? With the mallet keyboard instrument and not like kind of a popular ragtime jam, right? It was more in the box. And so with that in mind, if we could break down a little bit of this beginning material, it contains so much of what we use for the rest of the movement, rhythmically speaking, correct?
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind just playing a little bit by yourself, just the entrance, and just play a few bars, where a couple bars, 2-3 bars, just by yourself, right from the beginning. Your first entrance, I should say.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you know what? I'm going to hop back here where I have a marimba, and we can explore some of these concepts together. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
First of all, can you hear me okay with this mic?
Yes.
Wonderful. Totally not used to this Zoom type jam, but I'll do my best. Okay, so let's break that down. That contains, just those few bars you played contains so much of what this piece can be about in character, and you're doing already so wonderfully. When you practice marimba or keyboard instruments, do you ever have a practice pad nearby?
I do, but I guess if I'm practicing marimba, I wouldn't play on the practice pad.
Yeah, exactly. We as percussionists, we have so much to cover. It's hard not to be just solely focused on this, and then snare drum, and then cymbals and all that stuff. But I encourage you to kind of bring some of those elements in when you're playing keyboard instruments. Bring in some of the drum element because it's going to function in the same way in how we move our hands. So if we take the first couple bars, let's just take the first 2 bars, right? We have these rhythms. And now having the clarity established between tiering those rhythms of the 16th note, the dotted 16th, 32nd, and 6th tuplet is going to be incredibly important to layer the character in relation to how rhythmically driven this piece is and the syncopation of kind of the style of the piece, right? So having that definition of that dotted 16th, 32nd note is going to be really important to setting up a lot of the groove within the piece. So I encourage you to, if you don't have a pad, I'm assuming you don't have one there, maybe perform what I'll do on the pad. You can play on like a C natural or something like that, just on one note. Cool?
Okay.
So try this for me, just playing the first bar. We're going to break that down. We're going to play it forward and then backwards immediately, right? So we'll go something like this. Try that. Just slow, easy. Just play 16th note, the first 4 16th notes, and then the dotted 16th, 32nd, triplet, and then backwards. So just on one note. Slow, take your time.
And then you want me to play that backwards?
Yes.
Okay.
You could play it slow too. Oh, you know what? I might be miscommunicating here. So simply play 1 E endo, and that's it. And then the next beat, 1 a 2 then the third beat, triplet 1. And then we go back to beat 2, 1 a 2
Oh,
and then
I thought you meant like
1 E
literally
endo.
play it backwards. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Go ahead. Great. You know what? Let's explore that for a second. When you go back into the practice room on this piece, I'm assuming you're going to keep playing it. I'm assuming you're going to go on and play the next movement, the movement after that, and keep it in your repertoire. This is a great way to explore the rhythmic integrity of the piece. So work on this concept, even just subdividing to yourself 1 and 2 and 1 E endo, 2 E endo, triplet 1. 1 E endo, 2 E endo, 1 and 2 and 1 E endo, 2 E endo, triplet 1. Now what you're going to do is kind of develop that, add the pitches to it, like this. Sorry, try that again. And break it down nice and slow. What I'm after here is developing your hands to be able to manipulate all these rhythms, all these intricate rhythms in exactly the way you might want to do it in order for your interpretation to really shine through later on, right? So try that much. Awesome. So when I'm talking about that beat 2 mainly, and we get that all over the place. Da 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 da. 1 E endo, 2 E endo, da 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 da. This thing. Awesome. So when we go in and explore that, the dotted 16th, the 32nd note, in terms of clarity, that theme I was talking about in the beginning, it's really important that we learn to bring out that smaller note, that pickup into the bigger beat. This one. Cool, coming off of the 16th notes. Having a little bit of punctuation on those small notes, because what happens is when we play this up to tempo, those can be a little bit lost in the texture of everything, especially if you're playing in an orchestra setting as a soloist. There's so much sound going on. You really need to punch those out. So when we play 1 E and da 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 ba 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 ba, really focusing on the small notes. So learning to develop this rhythm in your hands is going to be really at your age and stage, a very critical element to being able to put all these rhythms together to really be able to bring out the intent, the clarity of your intent of the character going on throughout the entire piece. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Awesome. So let's try this again. Let me play first, then you check it out. That da 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 da. Developing that precision. Can you play from the beginning there, just and keep going, maybe up to that 16th sextuplet flourish you had a few bars later. A little bit slower around the tempo you're at, and really think about that small note coming out. Ba ba da ba da ba 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 da ba da ba da ba ba ba. Check that out.
Okay.
Go ahead. Awesome. So what I'm starting to get a little bit is a metamorphosis into triplets with those dotted 16th and 32nds. It's starting to sound a little lilty. Da 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 da. Cool. So understanding that subtle difference of ba da da ba 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 da 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 ba 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 is going to be very important to developing your hands. Again, at this stage, we want to get this foundation really, really solid, so that later on you can really like manipulate every little thing you want to manipulate in terms of how you want to interpret music. It's very, very important. So thinking about how, when I'm practicing, how is this affecting the clarity of what I want to say, the rhythm, the articulation of the rhythm, and then the phrase, and then the thought, and then the intent. How does that all kind of fit together? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let me know if you have any questions, please. We'll keep going too. So that's one thing I wanted to kind of address a little bit, just the rhythmic integrity throughout. And that's something I think, again, if you work on this first chunk, you're going to really learn to, or you're going to really be able to put it all together for the rest of the piece in the same way. The next part of it, let's check out those rolls throughout. In particular, you know, the long notes, the connected notes. Now, on marimba, obviously, it doesn't resonate forever, and so we need to manipulate the sound with what we call rolls. And before measure 75, we have a little expressivo moment. Starting on the E and G sharp. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you play some of that?
Yes.
Awesome. Stefan, beautiful. So the roll speeds, that's something that I think we can play with, especially again at your age and stage. Just because you're rolling doesn't mean everything has to go just quickly, fast, right? You can play with the sound that you're creating in the room. You can play with the sounds that your lower notes are creating fundamentally to cover up, you know, the higher note stuff. Even if it's the main voice on your right hand, your higher hand, it's going to come out a little bit. So there's a way to play with expression using just velocity and speed and dynamic. There's also a way to play with variation on roll speeds for us playing the keyboard instrument. So check this out. I'll go play it two ways. One with the consistent quick rolls, and then we'll play around with that on the second time. See what you hear as a difference maybe. Now here's way two. see what I mean with that?
Yeah,
with the
the
different
little
roll
speed
speeds?
changes for expression.
Yeah, and all it takes is just subtle changes in my velocity of stroke, right? And just hearing the sound the marimba's creating and playing with that sound as you develop that experience of playing with the different rolls. Now, the fact that you're a composer is amazing, because what you can do is to work on things like this, start creating your own chorales, your own beautiful, just ballad-like pieces, etudes, if you will, to work on that kind of thing. So if you take, like thirds, I'm going to use a C major scale as an example. You can create something to work on that. Just going up the C major scale in thirds, for example. Right? So create your own music to work on these little variations in our technique that we can play and bring to the table on a piece like this. Now, the reason I would point this out in this particular section is not the other two roll sections that we have, the long note sections with the slurs and the connections, is that the energy you have in this section musically is a lot more dolce, right? You have a lot more connection. The accompaniment changes. It's still rhythmic underneath, but it's much more dreamlike. Whereas at the very beginning and toward the end, coming off the big runs, you still have energy. So using the faster pulsing rolls, for example, at that point, makes a little bit more sense with the energy that you're creating. Having those quicker rolls, if that makes sense. And so here is a moment to really let that shine in terms of your touch and your ability to manipulate the stroke speeds to create more of a singing quality, which incidentally will help you out a lot in that second movement that you're going to, play one day down the road. Messing, all those four mallet notes, is very beautiful. You can really apply that multi-stroke concept to that, if that makes sense. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Great. Sergio, I hate to cut in, but
man.
we gotta check in with MTT as well on this one and get to other panelists. It's brilliant.
Man,
Thank you.
Stefan, just amazing playing, man.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
So MTT, do you have anything you can share with Stefan for his performance of the Creston?
First of all, bravo, Stefan. It's a spectacular performance.
Thank you.
I understand some of the what Sergio's trying to tell you. Let me speak to you a little bit about the same thing. What mood do you think this piece is in?
I feel like
what character is this piece in? Your part especially.
It's very like jumpy. It has those rhythm themes. It's like excited, filled with adrenaline, and at the end it's like a big like dramatic finish. But like I feel like how it's played on marimba and like how keyboard instruments have this this like, what's the word for it? This like characteristic that developed through time about being all jumpy and being all funny and being, and I feel
Absolutely.
like it has like that energy.
You're absolutely describing different aspects of what I would like you to think about, which is, first of all, the purpose of the piece is entertainment. This particular piece. The purpose of this piece is to entertain. There's nothing wrong with that. And it wants to entertain in this movement in a rather provocative way. It creates situations where we expect one thing and then quite deliberately something else is done, which kind of trips up our understandings of things. So one of those things has to do with what Sergio was talking to you about the specific difference between these rhythms. One thing I can tell you, that it is the general tendency, which Sergio was talking about, in passages like this, that when the same figure is repeated many times, it is likely that the little note will get The little note has to be played later and later to give the same impression of where it goes. Otherwise, little by little, it will go. That's what will happen. So always the last note, what is it, in this case, the 32nd note, always think that that goes to the next beat. Put that as late as possible that leads you into the next beat. The phrase itself, by the way, all your 3/8 stuff is really good. You grasp that, all the places which it's organized in 3/8. This other thing, if you got more into this sort of provocative, entertaining thing, I mean, I don't know how much of the, I mean, do you know a piano piece called Nola?
I haven't heard, no.
You should look that up. It was one of the, probably when this piece was written, perhaps one of the most famous pieces in the entire world. It's an entertaining piano piece. It goes and so on. Very irritating, and once you start thinking about it, once you start thinking about it, you're stuck with it for a long time. Pieces like that, or Chrysler's piece. Did you ever play a piece by Chrysler called Tambourin Chinoise?
I don't think so.
Well, that's another kind of piece. It was originally a violin piece, but much performed by marimba soloists. And there's this whole repertory of entertaining salon pieces that are the language of this piece is very much coming from that sort of thing. But of course, Creston is trying to be more serious about it. So basically, what he's doing, he's kind of stirring that all up with Prokofiev, basically, and that's the result. That's what comes out. So, as you could become more of the way, first of all, I think it would be a lot of fun for you to play some of those pieces, like Nola and Tambourin Chinoise and whatever, all those kinds of things. And see how that kind of goofiness comes into some of this. Concerning this section, right? So this is basically, this is a kind of bitonal. And then I think it would be very interesting for you to play this once, really just maybe even with a pianist going, so you would hear what the harmonies really are. And so on. Because where the whole phrase is really leading is this. To there. Right, because it's a whole setup. There's even an E7 chord. But instead of this, or any of the above, or whatever, we get those kinds of little fake outs with flatted and raised notes are happening quite a lot in the way this tune is. And the more you sensitize yourself to that, the more you'll be able to find your own original way of doing it. But really, bravo. Great stuff.
Thank you.
What you're going to do next. Bravo.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And everyone who's tuning in, big virtual round of applause. I'll give you the physical round of applause as well. Amazing. So now we're going to head over to our next performer on trombone. This is going to be Aaron Abbey. So Aaron, once again, everyone, a virtual welcome for Aaron. And why don't you tell us where you are calling in from and what you're going to be performing for us?
As you've heard, I'm Aaron. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, can you speak up a little bit louder, Aaron? We're having trouble.
Is it all right now?
Yeah, and even more, I think. If you can project even more, it's going to help.
Here, how is that?
Yeah, as much as you want, yeah.
All right, so hi, I'm Aaron, as we just heard. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. I go to Dreyfus, and I'm going to be performing the Sarabande from Bach Cello Suite Number 1 in G major. I know it's a little bit untraditional or uncalled for to perform cello music on other instruments, but personally, I feel like it's a little bit of more of a challenge of expression and of sound to emulate what another instrument may be doing at any given point in time. So that's why I chose to perform this piece.
Great. We're thrilled. We're going to hear some Bach on trombone. So whenever you...
I'm thrilled. I'm very excited.
Whenever you're ready.
Here, can I just play a note really quick? Because I had to turn up my gain so you guys can hear me speak, so I just want to make sure the sound levels are alright. Is that alright? Too loud, too soft? All good?
Maybe, could be perhaps a little bit louder, I think.
Alright. Here, how about this?
Beautiful. All right, let's pass it over to our panel here.
Aaron, bravo.
Thank you very much.
Really, really nice job. You know, as trombone players, you know, we're very accustomed to stealing repertoire from other instruments, and why not Bach? So many other instruments have stolen from it, so we might as well do it too. So, as a trombone player, playing this, I really want you to start considering the sound of the bow, like the different sounds you can get using the bow, and having that conception when you're approaching this music. You know, a lot of times as trombone players, we have like two modes sometimes. Like it's a Mahler mode or a cantabile melodic etude mode, right? So it's kind of like an on-off with a lot of players. And so you don't want that. So I'm just asking you to really consider what the different sounds and articulation, what it sounds like on a more of a Baroque cello almost sound, and getting that type of concept. So, you know, going and listening to like Anna Bilsma or Peter Rispelway, those type of cellists, just to get a different concept of what can be done with this. You know, there's so many different recordings of this. Of course, Yo-Yo Ma, Casals, Fournier. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But there's different concepts. And as trombone players, I think it's really beautiful to do the unexpected. You know, the expected is for you to go in and sound like a Mack truck. The unexpected is for you to play really beautifully and sensitively and show different shades of sound and articulation. Really be conscious of the melodic line and the use of the embellishment. Oftentimes, you know, with a larger instrument and the breadth and the width of the sound, less is more. Less is definitely more. And you can probably say that with trombone in general, less is more, okay? So really think about where you're going with your line and how the embellishment is going to enhance the line in general, but not get in the way of the line, okay? So if you start at the top, right? Mm-hmm. Keep it flowing and keep in mind, you know, this is more courtly dance. Okay? More of a courtly dance, as in I'm inviting you to a dance rather than I'm driving you to the dance. Okay? So let's start at the top. And make sure you're keeping it moving. Keeping it moving. Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I think what would kind of help would be more air, not as air in the horn, but air and space between the notes, and letting the arpeggio, let it sing out a little more, and let the sound just kind of ring. Okay? So. Okay? Okay. You can take more time with it and give things more space. It'll be very, very effective, okay? Mm-hmm.
Ken?
Not getting your way.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ken?
Yes, I can.
Hey, and bravo to you, young friend, Jonathan. Could we maybe ask you to play this once without any of the chords? Just play the tune itself for a few bars. think for one thing this could be thought of in a more moving tempo. And certainly, if it were played on an instrument that's capable of arpeggiating a chord, the chord is going to be executed something like this. That's probably more like the tempo of a saraband. So try once just to play it in that kind of tempo. 3. Just try a few bars like that. No chords, just the melody. Okay, I think the key to this is when you really discover what the contour of this melody is and how you want to project it in its simplicity and stability, that then you'll be able to put in the arpeggiated chords in one way or another that will aid and abet that. You do realize that in the second bar, this beat, you play that much, much slower for some reason. Try that, first 2 bars. Yeah, that's in the right direction. You know, I'm going to let you get back in, Ken. But it's really interesting, you know, that when we make music, especially those of us who play with orchestras, very often when tempi gets slow, we find the conductor conducts in 8, you know, it's in 6 or 8 or, you know, whatever it is. But it's a very nice feeling if you could actually feel the music very confidently in the tempo, in this case, what the actual speed of a quarter note is. And if we could hear the beat, if we could hear how a quarter note goes, just the speed of a quarter note, it probably would go something like this. That would be sort of the propulsion of the way the pulse itself moves along. And if you can clue into that, that'll give you a lot of strength and direction. Back to you, Ken. Thank you for letting me speak up.
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And as to what, you know, Michael is talking about, keeping the tempo going and having the sense of the dance, really, and the melody, you know, don't let the arpeggiation get in the way of the melody and the embellishments. You know, Stravinsky wrote this book, The Poetics of Music, and he talks about, you know, having a framework to work within. So, you know, make sure that, you know, the rhythm is well established before you go outside of it. So you're creating the box. Make sure the box is well established before you start going outside of it. So as some of what Michael is talking about, the tempo. You know, really, really great soloists. I've heard fantastic soloists for a long time have spectacular rhythm and sense of timing and pace. So when they're going outside of it, it's really deliberate and it's really meaningful. So you have to have the boundaries established, okay? So, you know, really practice the melody, identify the melody really clearly at a strict tempo. Put the limitations on yourself initially. So then you can go outside of it and it means something, okay? You know, take a take a hard look and a listen to some different instrumentalists playing this, different cellists. I think that'd be very, very helpful for you. Keep the articulation on the softer side. You know, make sure when you're articulating, you're sticking to more of the do articulation rather than the to. Okay, so make sure it's not hard as you're proceeding. Another thing to experiment with is, you know, upon the repeats, doing some type of variation on the embellishment that you're doing, not necessarily doing it the same way exactly. Understand?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, initially maybe more simple, then more complex the second time. That's always more interesting for the listener. And, you know, you always, as an instrumentalist, as a performer, you know, you want to make sure that you're drawing people into what you're doing. You're inviting people into your space with your sound and your phrasing. So that's, you know, I always think about that when I'm performing, how I'm inviting people into my soundscape, into my musical world. So, you know, you have to use all of your tools that you have to do that. And you have a lot. You have a lot already. And it's just a matter of shaping what you have. Okay? Can you?
Another person in listening to Bach performance, Jordi Savall, you know, who's the really great gamba player, great master of Baroque music and Renaissance music and so on. Hearing him play these kinds of dances, you learn a lot also from him. Jordisavall, Jordi Savall.
Yeah, I'm going to search it up really quick. Can you repeat that, please?
And what you realize, of course, in this era, in this time of music, people played music on a lot of different instruments. And I'm sure Bach would have felt that an artful performer on some instrument other than the one for which he had written this piece, he would be happy to have that performer do something which would present the piece in a way that is most favorable for that instrument. So even with when you do consider these harmonies, I agree with Ken, you don't have to be thinking, you could think, you could play one note or another of the chord. You could invent sort of a second line and shift whether it's a little bit, because on the instrument, the original instrument, all these chords are sort of little decorations, aren't they? They're like being a lute player or something like that. You're someone singing yari, and this accompanist is going blum, 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 like that. Right, you know, so the whole idea of the chord is more loose and easy and decorative, and the melody is its own core.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. So did you get that, Aaron? Jordi Savall?
Yeah, I got it. It's in the chat, correct?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I'm not sure about the exact spelling. But he's a wonderful musician. Tons of recordings to listen to. You know, he's an absolute master of, you know, Baroque style, playing on original instruments. So please take a listen to that. Yeah, in addition to listening to cello suites in Jordi Savall, you know, any day I can listen to Bach and immerse myself in Bach is a great day. So if you can listen to, you know, the violin sonatas and partitas, the well-tempered clavier, the Goldberg variations, you know, just to get an idea of what Bach was about, this will serve you when you're playing this, you know. And then listening to it on original instruments also. you'll just gain so much more information. Then if you were listening to another brass instrument playing this, which of course you can gain a lot of information from that, but you want to take your playing to another level and to do something that's exquisite, okay? But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Aaron, a big virtual round of applause. Thank you for your beautiful playing. Great. So we're going to be moving on to our third performer for today, and that is Jonathan Intenza, our cellist. So diving into, speaking of Bach and cello suites, now we go into cello. I don't think we're hearing Bach, but Jonathan, why don't you tell us what you're going to be performing?
Hello, I'm going to be playing the third movement, or third section rather, of Saint-Saëns's first cello concerto.
Wonderful. Whenever you're ready, we're looking forward to hearing that. Bravo, bravo, Jonathan. Thank you. Thank you for playing that. Before we hand it off to our panel, I am going to suggest one thing. On your microphone, the gain level on the back of the mic seemed to be a bit high. If you can turn that down, it's going to help with the balance. I believe, are you using a Blue Yeti microphone?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so if you can adjust and bring the gain level on the back end of that, that's going to help us with clarity. But yeah, beautiful playing, and let's pass it off to our panel now.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Hi, bravo. You sounded fantastic. That was a fabulous performance. And it was super convincing, and clearly you are absolutely promising, and you have a lot of wonderful qualities to offer. It's, you know, you're very musical, and I really, your communication, you know, through music was very good. You know, I really felt, you know, you moved me in many ways. And also, you know, your technique is also very, very good. It's pretty solid, and, you know, and everything is right on target. So congratulations. You know, it was a really, really good performance.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things, you know, and like I said, you're very expressive, you know, so you have great imagination. And, you know, that really spoke to me during the lyrical section. But when, you know, things that are really fast, so like, you know, and I feel like you could also be pretty expressive about it. So sometimes, you know, when you have you know, passages like that, so then I could use some, you know, I could use more contour and also more shape. So then, you know, of course the virtuosity was there, and I was very impressed. But I think also, you know, we can have, you know, you can be more precise, you know, with, you know, where's the peak of the phrase and what kind of shape you want. You know, so that's, you know, my general comments. And also another thing is, I want to talk a little bit about vibrato. So, you know, I think vibrato is very personal. So everybody, in terms of speed and, you know, how much vibrato, and if you want to use vibrato or not. But I think whatever you do, just make sure that it's very precise, you know, and you have a clear idea, you know, and you have a good reason why. You know, certain notes are not vibrated, and certain notes are. So you know, during the lyrical section that you know, when you played, it was beautiful that you did a lot, you know, with your bow, which is great. But I know sometimes, you know, like the first finger is often not vibrated. I know, you know, as a cellist, you know, I'm very aware. First finger is not comfortable. So, but, you know, for example, if you have certain things like a appoggiatura, then you don't want to vibrate. You want to create the tension and to release. That's great. But when you have 4 quarter notes, you know, so and they're both equally singing, it's very legato, and you have one, you know, you have 2, 3, 4 being so beautifully, you know, expressed. But then all of a sudden you switch to like, another string with the first finger. Right away, there's a dead note. You know, so things like that. But if you have a really good reason, let's say, you know, and it's like that I like the color, not to have, you know, then that's perfectly fine. You know, so I just think whatever you do, be more purposeful, especially if you're, you know, with vibrato. And another thing I want to talk just a little bit about, it's a cello thing, harmonics. Okay, so one of the things is like, for example, the very beginning, at the slow section, when you have, I think it's fine, but and then every single time you play, to me that seems more of a convenience. I know this position is very awkward, so
you're gonna stand basically.
especially if you want to do, for example, for color, for certain color, if you want to be colorful with it, the piano, the pianissimos, the time when you have the pianissimo, you want to go, that's fine. But when you take time, when you did a rubato, I think it's better to actually, because that's quite a beautiful, and it's a longer note. So I think it's much more singing that way. Okay, so can you give it a try of doing the middle section from K?
But she needs to
Jonathan, that's great. So can you this time try actually try vibrato?
Okay.
All right.
And also maybe same thing. Give it a try.
No accompaniment, please. Just play without accompaniment.
Oh, without accompaniment.
Yeah.
Now you have two choices. So if you really like the color of the harmonic, that's fine. But then I think it has to be a musical choice, not a technical convenience. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that I was talking about. Then when you shift to this one, no vibrato because it's hard. I know. What if you continue vibrato? I think it's more expressive.
Okay.
Then same thing. Can you give it a try? So just to be more purposeful.
Can I jump in for 1 second here? Also, in this phrase you're playing, by the way, really remarkable, really beautiful playing, Jonathan. You're a tremendous natural talent. How old are you, Guy?
I'm 16.
Well, it's just infuriating how many things are totally natural for you.
Thank you.
You have some things to learn, but you haven't got much to unlearn, which is a really great thing. You can't imagine how great that is. So, in this phrase that we're talking to, see how I was talking to you about, what's the most important note in this phrase you're playing here? That starts there.
The A.
What is the most important note for you in that phrase?
I'd say the A.
I don't agree with you.
Okay.
This is the most important note. Then, and then, and like a lot of wonderful young players, you think more about when passages go higher than when they go lower. I can see your attention. If it's going up and if you're extending and extending, you're like right on it. And then the minute it kind of pulls back and starts downshifting or going, you're like, oh yeah, well, okay, that'll take care of itself. Very often it can be in music that it's just the opposite. And see how the suggestion here is that if you went more tenderly to this, then you'd have this vocabulary of bringing in the sound. And then you could maybe even take it back to the tender place where it began. And try that. Just experiment with that strategy. minute. Don't work the A so much. Just float the A and enjoy listening to it, but don't you're milking the cow. Take it easy. Let the music speak for itself a little bit more. Stop. Just play this. And really have your focus in the sound, the left-hand sound, of what's happening in that. It's not a very long note, but still. You might want to make that a little bit longer to allow yourself to squeeze in possibly 1.5 more vibrations before you have to move on. So that first phrase, that's just one possible way that you might consider it.
Right.
But there's a lot of, see, I'm telling you, there's a lot of thought that as you think about the contour of the phrase, what kind of sound you might think for you is authentic, is right for different parts of the phrase. Because this phrase itself really expresses a great deal of vulnerability, doesn't it?
Right.
Saint-Saëns is a great master at writing this stuff.
Yeah.
How about another tune in which the low note is the most important one? That's the note, right? So this is something that he does a lot, and finding this sense of calmness, of vulnerability, where what you're inviting the audience to do, instead of saying, "Hey, audience, get ready. Here it is. You better be ready for it."
Yeah.
You're saying, "Come closer to me. Get to know me. You come closer to me. Because by playing so beautiful, you really want to lean into it and hear it." You can do both. It's all there. I'm done.
Great. Wonderful points. Jonathan, another thing, can we, before time runs out, can we try some the faster passages?
Yes.
So go from there. So that when you go up, to have, try to have some shape, to have more shape. Very nice. I think that's much better. And also, when you get to the top, can you actually vary your bow speed a little bit? I know it's a spiccato, but maybe utilize a faster bow speed, use a little bit more bow. Wonderful. That was great. Yeah. And another thing that I want to just, when you do do that part, so can you just make sure, I think it's great, your intonation was really, really good. Just make sure that when you do harmonics, especially artificial harmonics, so keep your bow very close to the bridge, and stay there. Make sure it doesn't go up and down. Can you give it a try? So that way it's going to enhance the speed.
There are people though who just they just go up the whole way, don't they, without playing it in harmonics?
Right. Some people do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you want to keep your thumb very firm on the fingerboard and watch your bow so the bow doesn't go this way. So that if you do that, the harmonics sometimes don't speak, as well. And there's one little thing, like Michael said, there's so many things that you've done. It's just so beautiful. I mean, like I enjoyed very much, So in the second time, I think sometimes, if you could actually let the orchestra part, or let the piano part, the harmony change affect your musical decision. I think that would be great. I don't know if you have bar numbers, or do you have bar numbers in the music? You probably don't. So there's.
But before we leave this, can I say one more thing about this, which is, what Sia was talking to you about making those shapes, where you go, what leads up to that, right? It's so easy for you to do that, but you could let the audience feel that, oh my God, I've got to get up there, yada-dee-da-dee-da-da, and then, oh my God, I'm going even a half step higher than I did last time. Get into it, folks. There's more opportunity for the audience to find it more impressive if you shape it, and one of my favorite words, tonutify slightly certain significant moments in the phrase.
Absolutely, yeah. Jonathan, could you do the very last time when you have that part? After maybe with piano this time? With piano?
Yeah, with piano.
What measure is it?
That's probably 552.
552. All right, okay.
This time I feel like at 558, when you have the that harmony is different. Then you react, you reacted to it. So can you just do that part one more time, like 550 from 557, then pay attention to 558.
Ready and 557.
Yeah.
Ready
That was really beautiful. That was really beautiful because the second beat, because the harmony changed, then you varied, your vibrato and also your bow speed according to based on that. I thought that was really, magical. Like, I was like, ooh, that was really, really something. That did something to my emotions. Yeah. I think, a lot of things, a lot of things you do are really, really fantastic. And you're tremendously talented. You have a lot of promise. So work hard.
Jonathan, wonderful, beautiful playing.
Jonathan,
Thank you to our panel.
Where do you live? Where are you now?
I'm in Miami, West Kendall.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Wonderful.
Representing the local talent here in Miami. Excellent. Jonathan, thank you so much. We are now moving on to our fourth and final performer. So we're throwing things over to Sophia, who is in the SunTrust Pavilion at New World right now. So welcome, big virtual welcome to you. And why don't you just tell us what you're going to be performing for us?
Hi, today I'll be performing the third movement Oh, hi. Today I'll be performing the third movement of Saint-Saëns Violin Concerto No. 3.
Fantastic. Well, take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful
you.
playing, bringing the fireworks. Love it. And so also little shout out to your wonderful pianist and New World fellow Wesley Ducote as well. Thank you, Wesley, for your beautiful accompanying there. Excellent. So yeah, let's hand it over to Natsuki on our panel here and take it away.
Hi, can you guys, Sophia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, earlier my mic wasn't working and so I was freaking out a little bit. Okay, great. First of all, nice to see you again. For those who don't know, I was doing a side-by-side concert 4 years ago as a New World Fellow, and Sophia here was there, right? I have a picture with you. You're like 12 or 13 years old. You were so lovely. So this is just a full circle moment for me personally, seeing you so grown up and playing so beautifully.
Thank you.
So I don't want to get into too many details. I want to touch just a couple broad ideas with you, if that's okay. You can obviously get around the instrument quite well. And one thing I always thought about this piece, it's one of my favorite pieces. It's the first piece I ever played with orchestra, so it has a very special place in my heart. It's harder than it sounds. A lot, technically speaking, it's not the most natural thing for us violinists. There's a lot of diminished chords and a lot of passages that don't fit our hand, right? Especially in this movement, right? And we kind of, sometimes as violinists too, we get caught in the technical aspects of this concerto. And I think there is so much more to this concerto. Do you ever sing when you practice, Sophia?
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of playing and singing when I teach, when I play. There's this fantastic recording by Aaron Rozand, Mr. Rozand, and just the opening of the Saint-Saëns first movement, he plays it with just the most beautiful sound that you can ever imagine, with this gold vibrato nonstop, with this nonstop, just, it's like his bone is gone in his shoulder. It's just legato nonstop and this amazing sound. And I always try to create some image in my head when I play a song or a piece. And for this movement, I want to ask you, if you had to describe the melody, you know, that part, give me 3 words.
Elegant.
Off the top of your head.
Okay, so elegant.
Elegant, okay.
Like
it could even be a color, like an actual color.
Oh, a color? I think of like light purple.
Light purple.
Yes.
I love that. And texture-wise, what? Matte, pastel, rich, glossy?
I think of like silk mixed with that like furry material, but not like
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Velvet. So, that's the word. Yeah, velvet.
Velvet. Okay. Okay. Yeah. For me, when I get into the melodies of any piece, I always try to think of an image, think of words, because the most important thing in, I think, melodies is, one, the composer, you know, and one, thinking about what he was trying to get across to the audience, right? And then putting your own spin on it with those said words. Can you play that for me? I'm talking about the Right. So now, when you play a line like that, I see the color. Now I know what you're trying to go for. I think this line is much, much longer, especially in Saint-Saëns. These lines that we see, you see 4 bars, but it's going way further than that. In Saint-Saëns, even in the first movement, or even in his organ symphony or the cello concerto, all these passing notes, they all go down to somewhere, right? And right now, it's a little bit too, in general, Sophia, I feel like it's a little bit bar by bar.
Okay.
Yeah, can we try one more time? Right, I think that's a bit more convincing. And I actually saw purple, like purple velvet, whatever you said. I saw a glimmer of that, right? And that's just one little phrase, but it happens so often, especially in this movement, that melody and also that one, it happens so often. And he writes different things each time for them, right? And sometimes the dynamics are different, right? But the exact sequence of that is always the same. And so I think that's why having a specific idea, a specific word even, to describe those helps the listener kind of be in more with your world of sound. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, going back to the beginning, speaking of sequences, the very, very beginning, the first chord, yes, it's the biggest, literally speaking, because it's a 4-note chord. However, I think it goes all the way to the very, very low note. And then you're not done yet, because then you have this arpeggio. Don't be afraid of it. Try again from the top, please. Right. Now, speaking of this opening, I wanted to touch a little bit on your vibrato. Sometimes, with adrenaline, we tighten up a lot. Yeah. And I think with, being around Minnesota Orchestra this past, 3-4 years, I've had the privilege of playing with lots of soloists. And one of my highlights was playing with this phenomenal singer, Sasha Cook. My trial when I first got there was Mahler 2, and with Sasha Cook, and it was a life-changing experience getting to hear her play or perform these melodies, and just how she used her voice to channel different intensity levels. For us, our bow changes sometimes get in the way of these long sequences and getting all the way to our end goal, right? And so coming from an open E to an A string, D string, and then this open G string at the very, very end, which has a natural resonance, sound, if we're not careful, it sounds really intense on the notes that we're playing, and then nothing on the open G. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Try one more time. That's more like it. I love that one. Yeah. And especially this movement in particular, there's so many sequences like that where it's always going down, right? And if we're not careful with our vibrato, the middle of the phrase gets more attention than the arrival note. Yeah. And then just one more thing I wanted to say to you is, can we actually do the dolce, the melody we were talking about earlier? Yes. Can you play that for a second? Good. So just take that melody, for example. If we don't think about vibrato, all we're going to hear is just even vibrato through two full bars where we just have the whole note. Here. going towards somewhere. A singer wouldn't just go, right? There's always somewhere they're going, right? Can you, I know we're on live at a town hall masterclass. Can you sing the first couple bars, like 6 bars for me?
Yes. Da, 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 da,
Thank you. Great solfege. Excellent. Now, with that in mind, can you play one more time from the beginning and just even subtle things like your voice did, right? Going, and then, the bow has to reflect that as well. Try. That gave me actual goosebumps. That was so beautiful. Now, again, we're just touching just the broad ideas of all these melodies, but there's so much that you can do with all the repeated ones later on, right? And one thing I really want you to think about, Sophia, when you practice this is the relationship of your vibrato to your bow. Naturally, I didn't have to say anything to you that time because just you're very, very natural when it comes to your playing. And I didn't have to say, okay, use more bow or slow down, speed up. However, those are factors that we have to keep in mind when we play long melodies. All the technical stuff, we're here. We don't have to move as much. And if anything, when we have these half notes, or they're broken up, right? That's when we tend to tighten up. And as soon as you have a color in mind or just singing it, naturally your body also just relaxes, right? And it becomes an 8-bar phrase instead of 4 or 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Yeah. Yeah. MTT, do you have anything to say? Oh, Evan.
First of all, thank you so much for your beautiful performance, Sophia.
Thank you.
With whom do you study?
I study with Charles Castleman, Micklin Laipang, and Huifeng Chen.
Well, you've been taught with great elegance and taste and all kinds of really very good things.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to hear that. So, when we play a concerto, one of the essential things in different concerti is about the relationship between the solo part and the orchestra part, and that the orchestra may present itself one way, in a certain kind of character, and then the soloist might play agreeing with that character, or the soloist might disagree with that character, or the soloist might sort of comment lyrically on something about it. There are a lot of different, it's different in different concerti. In earlier concerti, very often there was a, exposition, and then the soloist repeated exposition, very common. But in these more romantic pieces, it's almost like, since Beethoven anyway, it's like each concerto, the composer is trying to figure out some kind of different relationship that is the essence of that particular concerto between the soloist. So in this concerto, for the most part, what do you think the personality of the soloist is?
I think of someone really powerful, trying to get everyone's attention.
Can you speak a little more slowly and distinctly, because of your mask? And get a little closer to the microphone also, perhaps. Oh, you can't do that, I see, okay. Well, maybe they can give you a little more sound, but get through that mask.
Okay, so I think of someone with a strong presence, and someone who's trying to get everyone's attention in the room and really command everyone's attention and really make a presence for himself.
Yeah, so the soloist is definitely primarily introduced usually as a kind of wild, tempestuous, dangerous force. But then, in Saint-Saëns' typically very manipulative and charming way, he'll say, but I'm not only some wild guy, I really have all this sensitivity too. You can't believe how caring and sensitive. Just listen to what I do at the end of the second movement. How much more sensitive do you want than that? Then we go into this last movement. And this last movement, what character, this last movement is in what kind of character? What sort of nationality does this come from, this last movement?
I tend to think of the Spanish bullfights at the very opening, like the red capes and
Oh, you mean that? Yeah. Well, that's just reestablishing the personality of this dangerous guy, this dangerous person that we heard in the other movements. But then once we go. What is that? What kind of music is that? I'll tell you. It's Italian.
Oh.
It's like all these Italian movements by Mendelssohn and by everybody else.
Yeah.
You should have a tambourine with you next to the violin. In between, you could play. Bang, bang, bang. That's the kind of music. So that is what you always can come back to. Then what Natsuki was talking about was that there are these other movies, because it's like there's that wild sort of Italian tarantella kind of theme. Then there's what you were playing, whatever theme it comes in. What key does it come in? D major the first time? I can't remember. Now, when it comes in the first time, what is the accompaniment?
So the piano's kind of playing a soft, kind of long notes below me, like a shimmering texture.
I don't think that maybe that's so. The first time, doesn't it come in where the piano is playing, where the orchestra is playing?
Yeah, the first time, yeah.
I'm sorry, I had the wrong theme. Excuse me, wrong theme.
It's hard to hear.
That's what I.
Yes.
So that comes in forte, right?
Yes, it does.
And what is the accompaniment there?
It's very strong, and it kind of reinforces the melody.
But it's very rhythmic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that's telling you a lot about what the character of the little notes and the theme itself should be. It should make you stand up and salute. It's almost like a kind of football song or a high school alma mater or national anthem or something. We should all stand up. Dear high school, I'll always defend you. I will block the kick and hold the line and make the goal for you. It should have that kind of very rousing feeling. So that then, later on, when it's brought back, it can be brought back in a kind of contrasting style to that.
I see.
And this whole piece is emotionally very, very, very manipulative. Because we have all this music, then suddenly we have this, we're back in heaven again with some kind of celestial choir. And then when you play this next theme, this is the kind of theme that would very often be marked something like religioso. That it's meant to sound very spiritual and floating. And then then there are all these other themes. Each one of them has this very specific kind of emotional way that it's first presented, and then when it comes back, it could be presented in a more nostalgic kind of way. Like, so for example, the next time when this theme we were talking about before, it comes back in C major, doesn't it? what is the accompaniment here?
It's a totally different mood. It's like playing longer phrases. It's a lot calmer, and kind of allows the melody to float on top.
That is all true, but I'm encouraging you to think about the music and look at the music in a more phenomenological way. What exactly is happening? What is the accompaniment here?
It's playing long chords beneath me.
That's right.
Yes.
It's full notes, right?
Yes.
And so when in these pieces you suddenly come to an area where there is no rhythm, where there's just a kind of chorale happening, with this kind of simplicity, that suggests that that section might be played with greater lyrical, nostalgic, some kind of freedom or rubato. So now, you see what I mean? That if you played the first time, ya la 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 la, when you played the first time, now you have the freedom to play whatever you want. Now here, it's almost like the nature of the accompaniment gives you an idea of what kind of placement, what kind of presentation you might experiment with in how you can transform the theme in the way that you perform it. And once you start thinking about that, I'm sure with your intelligence and imagination, that will be very obvious to you. I think musically the most challenging moment in this movement is letter K. We're in B major, but we start in the dominant. Suddenly this comes in. We really haven't heard anything like this before.
Yeah.
A whole other character. It's like something we're at an Irish wedding or something like that. You have to come up with a very beguiling and attractive, fiddly kind of solution for this. So can we try that once at letter K and see if you could experiment a little bit with maybe little rubatos or little kinds of shapes in the theme. Might go a little bit up, a little bit down, might go across 2 bars, and maybe it's every half beat. We just play around with it. Playful.
Do you know where letter K is?
No.
That's
Does Ray want to
exactly
come in with the triplets?
Yep.
Good. I'd like for you to think of this as a bit more beguiling. After all this heaven and hell and battles and trials and all these things, now this is something where it's much easier, especially the way this is played. Wherever those slurs are. Well, we're back to... always with sound song, we always wind up in the same place. Okay, give it a try. You know what I would do? I would practice this a little bit sometimes, just to feel it as like. Because what you really want to do is get the audience more involved in the second beat of the bar.
Okay.
And then it may go various places after that. See if you can do that. And once you start fiddling with that, as they say, you will discover that a lot of different kinds of strokes could be mixed in there to kind of shape it so that the different harmonies would have some kind of different flavor to them. not unlike what one does on a different level, of course, but like in the opening of the Brahms Violin Concerto, where after the first couple of bars, basically the soloist just plays arpeggios for bars and bars and bars and bars and bars. But the way the soloist inflects those notes and what length they are and how that it reveals the sensitivity of the soloist to what's happening in the music. That's the same kind of thing that you can do here. You can really mix it up in a way that maybe it doesn't have to be the same way twice. Maybe each time you play the concerto, you might do it differently. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
That's right. Because you see what I'm talking about, that you see letter K, this sort of going back to this kind of charming, entertaining place after all this long stuff at the minuet of this and then that's going to lead to this, take no prisoners ending we're about to go to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of always a question, what do you do with this funny little, whatever it is, 12 bars or whatever it is? Use your imagination.
Okay.
No, you don't have to do it. I'm just saying that's the kind of thing you can have fun thinking about.
Thank you so much.
I did this concerto a lot with Isaac Stern back in the day. And in fact, this concerto, I guess a lot of people have this same experience, the first concerto they played with orchestra. So I think this was the first concerto that Isaac ever played with an orchestra, with the San Francisco Symphony. And he taught me, he had a conductor, he was a British conductor, I can't remember his name now, Sir Reginald Farnsworthy or something like that, whatever he was. He said he was a very distinguished older gentleman, and he accompanied Isaac. And the only advice he gave Isaac, he said, "My boy, if you cast your eyes heavenward as you are playing the flageolets at the end of the second movement, you shall gather much stronger applause from the audience." So that's all that Isaac used to remember when he got to that pace. He would go, kind of look up in the sky. So that's just a fun little story. Wonderful to hear you play. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Big round of applause for Sophia. Beautiful playing. And just one more time, we've come to the end. Just let's continue the applause for all of our performers and for all of our wonderful panelists and MTT and for all of our donors and for all of our audiences that have been tuning in to this masterclass and to previous town halls. Thank you so much for being a part of our musical world, our musical virtual world this season. And we can't wait to make music and hopefully see all of you in person and get to share our music together going on into the future. So until then, everyone, take care and stay musical. And we look forward to connecting again in the future. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.